Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. You are most welcome here. One of the places in my house where I change the decor seasonally is the dining room table. And I do have a runner that I generally put out in the spring, but I thought it would be fun to have something that's a little bit different and handmade. In the spring, I think about gardening, and when I think about gardening, I think about ironwork, about gates and windows and trellises. The Dollar Tree has these garden edging pieces which are plastic but made to look like ironwork. And I thought it would be fun to see if we could make some kind of table runner out of these garden edging pieces. Let's go have some fun. This is my dining room table, and that is my current runner, which is from Pottery Barn, and I love it. It is really too long for the table without the leaves in, though. So without the leaves, the table is 5 feet 4 inches, so I wanted to make sure that whatever I did was going to fit on the table. And these are the pieces of the garden edging from the Dollar Tree. And that one I actually melted a little bit to see if you could mold the plastic by melting, and I need to practice with that more before I attempt it. But what I need to do is cut the pieces. And they're not going to come apart neatly because they look like they're joined together, so they're not complete. You'll see what I mean when I get some of them cut apart here. And so I'm using some shears to cut them apart. They're not ordinary scissors, they're a little bit stronger. And I'm cutting out first one of those little decorations in the middle, and you can see that it loses some pieces because they're part of the frame that goes around it. We're going to fix that. First, we're just going to cut all the pieces that we need. And it isn't too hard to cut. I would say just go very slowly and carefully as you're cutting. And try to be mindful of what pieces you're going to use and how you're going to use it. So when you're going like up the middle here, if I'm going to use the piece on the left, I want to be careful to leave a lot of material on the left, and see how I didn't leave any on the right. I won't use that piece, or I could use it to cut out another one of the little decorations from the middle. Now this is my experimental piece, and what I wanted to experiment with is, can I use hot glue to repair the sections where I've cut a piece off and there's some plastic missing. I want to emphasize that this is a low temperature glue gun. You're going to see me touching a lot of hot glue, and it's not that hot when I'm touching it. So I can't put the hot glue on alone. It needs some kind of framework. So I thought I would try to use the pieces of plastic that were left over from when I cut things apart. There are a lot of little bits. So if you have a piece that fits, use that, or you can cut pieces to fit. And once I had that, it's not perfect, but it gives me a base that I can apply the hot glue to, and then I use my fingers to shape the hot glue. So see, I've given it a few seconds to cool before I start touching it. What we don't have with the hot glue is the texture of the original plastic. So what I was trying to do there was to see if I could press texture into the hot glue with another piece, and I could not. For the curvy piece, I used a curved piece as the base. So because I couldn't recreate that texture, I thought I'd mix up some baking soda chalk paint. So this is just white acrylic paint and baking soda, and there is no specific ratio that I use. I mix until I get a texture that I like. And I thought if I applied this to the plastic that I could get a texture similar to the original texture. Maybe with some experimentation you could get a texture that's exact. What I decided was my story of this decoration is that this is an old piece of ironwork that's been painted over many times. So it will have globs of paint, it will have bits that have rusted and then been painted over. I did want to compare, though, what do we get when we spray paint versus what do we get with the chalk paint. And you can see that the glue takes the spray paint a little more than the black plastic, and the texture really comes through. Whereas with the chalk paint, even though it is a little messy where the glue is, because the chalk paint is over the entire piece, I don't think it's really all that noticeable. Now, I think that you really need to repair these little pieces because so much is taken out of those when you cut them out of the larger frame. But maybe you don't necessarily need to repair the larger pieces, particularly if your story about your table runner is similar to mine, and you're saying, well, this is an old piece of ironwork that has some history. Now, here's what that glue looked like with the piece of black plastic, the sort of the scrap piece. And then I thought, oh, well, what if we use some cardboard? So this is just some cereal box cardboard. That stuff is great. Wonderful cardboard if you need a little bit of cardboard for a project. And I'm just tracing around the part that I want to fill in. I'm tracing where I think it should be. And then I'm going to cut that out. And I'm going to hot glue that to the back of the piece, and I'll get like a little sandwich that I can fill in with the hot glue. Now a better person probably would have put the brown part of the cardboard the other way so that that's what's on the back, but it is going to get covered up. It's easier to draw with a pencil on the brown part, so that's why I did that. It was a conscious choice, and I knew it was a conscious, non-optimal choice at the time. So there, I'm just filling it in. I really liked this method better than using the plastic bits method, because I could give it exactly the shape I wanted with the cardboard. So once I've done all 4 of the curly cues, this is what I've got. It's hard to tell how well you've done when you're looking at the clear against the black, but then I went in and painted with the chalk paint, and I put the chalk paint over the whole thing, but my plan is to then spray paint so that I can get better coverage with the spray paint and also seal it at the same time, because I don't want this chalk paint on my table and potentially coming off on the table, so I did want it sealed. But you could also paint it black or any color. I just wanted a white on black. Now I think you want to put something under the garden edging before you put it on your table. I chose these doormats from Dollar Tree, and they are 16 inches by 23.5 inches, but I noticed that there were some smaller ones there. Now 2 of these is enough. I don't know if 2 of the smaller ones would be enough. They were only slightly smaller. I think it would be enough, but you can see it's not quite wide enough. So we're going to trim it and then take the extra pieces and put them where we need them. And it actually works out just fine. So I'm going to put 3 pieces on one mat, trim, fill in, and then I'm going to do a symmetrical piece for the other side with the other doormat and the other 3 pieces of the garden edging. And I'm using masking tape to figure out where to cut the mat. You could also, I suppose, draw on it. I thought the masking tape was an easy way to mark the lines that I want. And then just be mindful of whether you're cutting on the inside or the outside of the lines that you create with the masking tape. Here I'm cutting on the inside. There, so we have that. And now we've got some excess, which we can use to fill in on the left side. So once again, I do use masking tape to mark where I want to cut. And I'm going to use masking tape and cut on the inside of it for that curve. But then here I'm putting masking tape where I want to cut on the outside, so where it was up against the other mat. And I'm going to use duct tape to fasten them together on the back. And the duct tape worked just fine. This is some very strong, this is Gorilla duct tape that I have here. We have all kinds of duct tape. This was the closest black duct tape that I found. Okay, so that's 2 pieces. And now we're just going to have to extend the mat at the top. But we can also trim it more on either side. Or it looks like I'm just trimming it on the one side and trying to make it even with the other side. So now I have all these excess pieces and I'm just sort of fitting them together so that they fit under that final piece on top. Same as before, cut them. And then duct tape on the back. Now you could also use felt, you could use fabric, you could use anything as the backing for this. And if you did keep your garden edging pieces black, then you could spray paint the mat white or another color, or you could use white felt. Again, this is that low temp hot glue gun. I am going to glue this using hot glue to the mat. And I had to work quickly because it is a low temp hot glue gun. So what I decided to do was one edge, adhere it, and then lift up the other side and do the other edge of that final piece. And it actually sticks quite well. Right here I'm lifting the whole mat up, but only by holding the garden edging. So it worked very well. So I just glue all the pieces down. Again, I'm going to do the other side of this piece because I only did the one side. And I don't know if you could use something else to glue it down because I didn't try anything else. I just used the hot glue and it worked well. I did not glue the 2 pieces of mat together because I thought this would be easier to store if I left it as 2 pieces. There, you can see I can lift the whole thing up by the garden edging. Now, this is the burnt umber acrylic paint, and in a moment I'll decide that this color is not sufficient by itself, and I'll get some black acrylic paint to mix with it. And you might recognize my experimental piece of fencing here. I thought, what if you want it to look like it still has some rust? So I did a little dry brushing of rust, and I did look at some reference photos of rust. It seems to show up just wherever it wants to. I didn't want to put orange in it. And then I did just dab over that with a little bit of white paint to tone it down a bit. I didn't do this with my table runner, but you might want to. So here we're sneaking up on it. Here's the final table runner, and it's a little dramatic for me, so I don't think I had the appropriate pieces for staging it. I think a beautiful tall vase of spring flowers might look nice, but I tried staging it a couple of different ways. I'd love to see yours if you make this project. So what did you think of our wrought iron look table runner? I like it. I don't think that it necessarily works with the decor of my dining room, such as it is, but if I had a farmhouse table, or if I had an outdoor area or a screened-in area, I think that it would work perfectly. If you made it, I'd love to hear about it, especially if you had variations. Please describe them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please consider subscribing to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.